President Korbelak, Vice President Nally, members of the board, elected officials, colleagues, students, parents, and county residents. I fully realize that I stand before you today as a single individual whose duty it is to present my best thinking as it relates to a plan to move our school system, our county, and ultimately our students forward. This is not a solitary endeavor, though. And I would hope that in the words I speak today, that you hear the voices and envision the work of a team of thousands of others whose dedication and commitment is second to none. Budgets are inherently about dollar signs, numbers, and percentages. Underlying every single aspect of any budget, however, is people. Ladies and gentlemen, we have awesome people who are doing incredible work for children. That work takes place each and every day in classrooms, laboratories, and lunchrooms, and on ball fields, stages, and tracks across our county. It occurs as this incredible team of people work both individually and collectively with our students to shape them into positive, intelligent, inquisitive, determined, compassionate, and caring individuals. I am thankful every day to be able to work with each member of this team. And I am confident in our collective ability, through purposeful planning, implementation, and relationships, to reach every one of our more than 80,000 students. We are a very good school system. We are not where we want to be yet. But we are moving in the right direction, and even in the face of adversity and criticism, I have seen and continue to see perseverance, passion, and progress. I stand here this morning confident that we will get where we want to go because I believe in the people of our organization who will lead us there. For all the incredible things they accomplish, however, we must realize that the resilience of our great people, the backbone of our success, is being sorely tested. They are weary and frustrated, and in many cases, they are becoming disenchanted. Constrained fiscal resources, increased mandates and assessments, and rising enrollments without matching resources have all taken their toll. You have heard their stories, and so have I. The frustrations of today largely have their root in nearly a decade of minimum legally permissible funding, a tide that the county executive and county council began to change just last year when they provided our school system with $5 million more than they were legally obligated to do. It is certainly my hope, and I know this board's, that we will see a continued change of that tide. A year ago, I stood before you and said that we must be cognizant of the fact that the rubber band stretches only so far. Our people, ladies and gentlemen, are being pulled to the point where the rubber band is about to snap. And it is up to us, as well as our local and state officials, to prevent that from happening. Through the different perspectives of their daily experiences, the voices of teachers and others heard from these microphones and elsewhere in recent months have echoed a clear and consistent message. Work together to support us and help us help our children. They yearn for more communication and better partnerships in an effort to change the conversation in our county and to create a better culture for our employees and ultimately for our students. I have told them, and I pledge again today, that I will continue to do everything I can to bring that about, and I call on our elected officials and our bargaining units to work together with me and this board in that quest. Our people, ladies and gentlemen, are the champions for children with whom they interact every day. In turn, we must continue to champion their cause. We owe that to them. We owe that to them because every day we are preparing children not just for success in academics, but success in life. It is our people at elementary, middle, and high schools, as well as at our special centers, who built the foundation and helped nurture and develop the students who graduated last spring. those seniors garnered $154.5 million in scholarship offers, the most ever in our school system. It is our people who propelled students at Lakeshore and Severna Park elementary schools to earn the prestigious National Blue Ribbon status earlier this year, and as was announced on Monday, led Arnold and Pasadena elementary schools to Maryland Blue Ribbon status this year. This is the second consecutive year that we have had multiple Blue Ribbon winners. It is our people who work with our youngest learners, where achievement gaps exist before students even walk through the kindergarten classroom door. It is our people who work to narrow those gaps by the end of that first year and put students in a better position to succeed as they enter first grade. It is our people who embrace the rising number of children living in poverty, more than 33% across our system this year, and help them believe that no child is defined by his or her circumstances, but rather by the self-belief that impossible is simply a word for those who refuse to work hard and see their full potential. It is our people who go to incredible and often unseen lengths to assist our rising number of English language learners and their families, helping them to not just understand, but firmly believe that a language barrier does not have to be a barrier to success. It is our people who are employing a multi-tiered system of supports and interventions to help reduce the incidence of referrals and suspensions across our school system. Over the last 5 years, their collective efforts have resulted in a 9 percentage point drop in the number of students receiving 2 or more referrals, and a nearly 7-point drop in the number of students receiving 1 or more suspensions. It is our people who are now diving deep into the first release of PARCC assessment data, spending countless hours to dissect and understand the data as we embark on a new yet familiar race to move all students to a place where they are college and career ready. While there are plenty who will criticize the PARCC scores, I reiterate emphatically that they are a starting point for a new journey that should not be compared to the old. Above all, it is our people who provide a meaningful student engagement every day in every classroom to every student. It is our people who know that if we take care of the little things, the big things will take care of themselves. There are any number of different ways, test scores, reductions in achievement and discipline gaps, and sustained increases in scholarship offers and enrollment in AP and IB courses by which the success of our students and our school system can be measured. For all of the numerical computations, however, we must not lose sight of the fact that the mission stated in our strategic plan calls on us to do more. It is the mission of Anne Arundel County Public Schools to educate all of our students to be well prepared for college and the workforce, and to empower them to create a better quality of life for themselves, their communities, and the next generation. So we must recognize that while we must recognize assessment scores, both successful and areas in which we need to improve, we must also take heed of those lessons we impart to our students that are not found in a textbook or contained in a PowerPoint. We must herald the efforts like Harvest for the Hungry, which teaches compassion and caring, and in which our students have led the state for years. Last year's drive brought in more than 230,000 pounds of food and nearly $115,000 in cash donations to help needy families in our communities. More importantly, it reinforced for our students that there is a world larger than that which immediately surrounds them, and that minor sacrifices for some can make major positive differences for others. We must pause and applaud when we see efforts like those of Olivia Weathers, the chief custodian at Lithicum Elementary School, who applied the Heimlich maneuver to help dislodge a piece of pineapple from the throat of a student last spring. Her action showed students that everyone can make a difference, even a life-saving one. But her thoughts about those actions spoke volumes not only of her mindset, but that of thousands of employees across our county. Once their moms dropped them off in the morning, she said, "They're my babies." We must recognize people like Meade High School Principal John Yore, for the new culture and heightened level of expectations that he has established at the school. You may be aware that Meade's boys soccer team lost the state championship game last month. However, it won something Mr. Ure and I consider to be every bit as significant, the Steve Malone Sportsmanship Award. Told of the award, Mr. Ure simply said, "The win would have been nice. However, this is most meaningful. We love victories, but there are no wins without class and character." And we must pause to recognize people like the athletic staff, football coaches, and players at South River High School for their efforts to teach us that time is always right to seize an opportunity to lift someone's spirits. C.J. Burke is a 6-year-old from Edgewater whose mother has stage 4 cancer. C.J. plays football, and one of his mom's wishes was to see him play on the very field he will play on when he gets to high school. South River heard of the Burke family's case and quickly made their dream come true. C.J. practiced with the team on the day before a game, and as his parents watched, played on the stadium field at halftime with his flag football team. But South River didn't stop there. The school made C.J. an honorary senior, gave him a jersey, introduced him and his family as part of the senior night ceremony, and let him take part of the coin toss. Nothing that happened in the Harvest for the Hungry collection, in the cafeteria at Lithicum Elementary, on the Meade soccer field, or in that stadium at South River can be directly reflected in an assessment score. But these lessons are critically important. They and countless other stories like them are an essential part of our work to mold and nurture students to excel in a society which they will one day lead. Please don't misunderstand. Test scores are important. But as we get students ready for college and career, we must also get them ready to be successful in life. The formulation of a budget to provide and enhance structures that increase student achievement and impart those life lessons is, like education itself, a complex undertaking. In the myriad discussions we had over the last several months, I have asked staff to consider several questions. First, will it help us elevate all students and eliminate all gaps? Second, does it align with our priorities to support our employees, enhance early literacy and elementary education, address the needs of English language learners, and ensure that class sizes don't get any larger? Third, is it necessary to get us where we need to go? And fourth, can we eliminate or reduce something else to fund it? That latter is especially important because I believe that we have a duty to the taxpayers of our county to be good fiscal stewards of the funding they provide us. In the $1.14 billion operating budget request I present to you today, we have redirected approximately $13 million worth of resources in a more targeted and purposeful manner for the coming year. My budget request is $51.4 million more than the current year, with 73% of that directly related to employee compensation and benefits, to adding teachers to keep pace with increasing enrollment, and to assist with rising class sizes. My request also includes $15.5 million to fund a full step increase for all eligible employees and a similar increase for non-represented employees. It also includes $15 million to replenish our health care fund, which has been drawn down in prior years as the county has used it to fund other parts of our budget. I am also proposing funding for 33 new classroom teaching positions to break even with the ongoing enrollment increases, and 10 additional teaching positions to begin to assist in our goal to reduce growing class sizes. Our school system has grown by more than 7,000 students in 10 years, and that's in large part due to the quality education that we provide students every day. That growth, however, has not been met with an associated increase in teachers. The result is burgeoning class sizes that are at critical mass at some schools. At Meade High School, for example, there are 69 core subject classes with 35 or more students. At Chesapeake Bay Middle School, there are 22 similar classes. My request contains $1.5 million to add 7th grade at the Monarch Global Contract School, $449,000 for 6 special education teachers, $358,000 to add 4 English language acquisition classroom teachers and an interpreter for our International Student Services Office, and $169,000 for 3 more bilingual facilitators to provide critical assistance and support to non-English speaking families. Our Enhancing Elementary Excellence, or EEE program, has been a huge boost to schools in the 3 clusters in which it is now operating. It not only has provided an additional subject of study for our students, but critical planning time for teachers, something they and our Teachers Association have sorely wanted for decades. This budget request contains $1.2 million for 11.5 teaching positions to expand EEE to 9 elementary schools in the Chesapeake and Northeast clusters. It also contains $654,000 for 4 positions to enhance the STEM programs at Lyndale and Central Middle Schools. In all candor, I would have very much liked to do more. I would certainly make a case for additional compensation increases and for more teachers to help with class sizes. The same holds true for a 3rd cluster in which to expand EEE, expansion of our International Baccalaureate Primary Years program, and a $2 million initiative that would have taken a big step toward a Bring Your Own Device program for students. However, I believe that my duty is to advocate for what we need and to do it in a reasonable way given the fiscal constraints that exist. What I've presented here is not everything we need. However, it will move us forward and create more opportunities for our students. Finally, I want to spend a few minutes on a subject that has received more consistent attention and comment than any other this year: school start and dismissal times. We have, as this board has directed, been engaged in a thorough examination of the possibilities that exist to start schools later. I want to be very clear and reiterate what I have said all along. I am not opposed to shifting school start and dismissal times. I do not argue with the science of circadian rhythms or sleep needs. However, I believe very strongly that any changes that we make must be instructionally sound and must not come at the expense of other parts of our educational program or our employees. Any plan must also take into account the logistical considerations that exist, especially with regard to time it would take to acquire buses and adequately certify bus drivers and aides. I have heard the comments from the public, this board, and others. I listened intently to our colleagues from Montgomery and Fairfax counties as they presented at this board's October workshop. What is clear to me are these 3 things. First, a simple universal shift would not accomplish this board's desires and almost certainly would cause considerable angst for parents, especially at our elementary schools. Second, rolling a plan out over a number of years is difficult and problematic, not just from a consistency of funding issue, but from the fact that to get where we want to end up, some schools almost certainly would have had their hours shifted 2 or even 3 times over those years. And third, any plan on which our school system focuses should be finalized only after our school communities and our employees have had a chance to weigh in. With all that in mind, I have included $8.1 million in this budget to adopt option A as presented by our task force, with a one-time shift in school hours, pending the provision of full funding and broad community support beginning in August 2017. This option would have our high schools beginning at 8:30 a.m., our middle schools beginning at 9:30 a.m., and our elementary schools beginning somewhere between 7:50 and 9:15 a.m. All schools would dismiss no later than 4:15 in the afternoon. So why don't we shift next year? 2 reasons. We must have the funding in place, along with the $602,000 appropriated by the County Council this year, before starting the process by which contractors would acquire buses. That acquisition process, as you heard in October, takes at least 8 months. Such a time frame would also allow us to fully stand up and begin to see any efficiencies realized from our bus routing software before we finalize start and dismissal times. I am planning to set up community conversations around the county after the first of the year so this board could have as much input as possible regarding the issue of school start and dismissal times before it makes a final budgetary decision in February. However, I urge this board, the county executive, and the county council not to take funding from other areas of our budget to cover these costs. We have seen in recent years, for example, the siphoning of approximately $18 million from our health care fund balance to pay for compensation increases and initiatives critical to our progress as a school system. Using one-time money for ongoing expenses is a poor budgeting practice by any measure. Ladies and gentlemen, there are no such rabbits left to pull out of the hat. If we, as a county, are truly serious about moving as a school system and about adjusting school hours, we must commit to providing the funding to do so and not to do it at the expense of our people or our programs. The proponents of later school start times have been consistently clear that they will take our case for funding to the fiscal authorities at the appropriate time. Now is that time. And I look forward to their passionate support for this initiative and all the others that are intended to improve our school system. Funding to support our people and enhance our programs is but one part of a successful school system. Our facilities must be able to not just adequately serve today's generation of learners, but allow them to thrive. The $255.6 million capital budget I present to you today allocates more than $74 million to pre-existing renovation projects, including Severna Park High School, Manor View, High Point, George Cromwell, Jessup, and Arnold elementary schools. It also includes $10.4 million for feasibility study and design funding for renovations at Edgewater, Tyler Heights, and Richard Henry Lee elementary schools, and $6.7 million in design funding for a new Crofton area high school. My request also includes $10 million for pre-kindergarten and kindergarten additions at Odenton, Woodside, and North Glen elementary schools, $10 million for classroom addition at Odenton Elementary School, and gymnasium additions at Woodside and Millersville elementary schools, and $7 million for open space enclosures at Chesapeake High School. I've also allocated $1.6 million for renovation work at the Carrie Whedon Science Center in Galesville, with the expectation that we will be able to open a pre-kindergarten program for 80 students in South County in the fall of 2017. The capital budget is $95.7 million more than the one approved by this board in September. That may seem like a staggering increase, but almost all of it is allocated to our pursuit of a federal government grant that would provide funding for renovations at Meade High School. We are pursuing this grant at the invitation of the Department of Defense, and we would only undertake these upgrades if they are funded through this federal government grant. Former President John F. Kennedy once spoke of the value of education this way: let us think of education as the means of developing our greatest abilities, because in each of us there is a private hope and dream which, fulfilled, can be translated into benefit for everyone and greater strength for our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, I am proud to be part of this great school system. That, through the incredible work of our awesome people, is fulfilling dreams for children every day. In the process, we are undeniably creating better tomorrows for our county, our state, and our nation. Thank you.